off the 1st of April, but as farming comes around, you've got to put farming first. And you're a new starter on the farm that you've just bought as well, so you've got to keep that pumping. Welcome to the Farms Advice Podcast with your host, Jack Creswell. Whether you farm it, service it, or just love it, this podcast is for you. We'll bring you the techniques and technologies you can implement into your day straight from the leaders and innovators themselves. Spread the farm's advice so that we can reach more farmers right across Australia. Follow us on all of your socials at Farms Advice, and let's get into this episode. G'day and welcome back to a cracking episode of Farms Advice Podcast, where we've got a couple of exciting launches, collaborations, agronomists, and also some pretty good information and a bit of a yarn along the way. But we'll let the episode talk all about it. Martin, Murray, Muzz, good to have you back on the Farms Advice Podcast. It's been a while in between a few episodes, but we've got some exciting news. Great to have you on.
Yeah, good to be here, Crazy. Always good to be on the Farms Advice Show, and congrats on hitting the 200,000 mark, was it?
Yeah, 200,000. It was actually a week or so ago, but I didn't see the info until a little bit later. I don't tend to check the insights like before starting the podcast. I used to refresh it every half an hour, but now it's a bit nicer not to be checking that every bloody 30 minutes, which is good.
Yeah. There's using a browser now. It makes it a bit more friction, between yourself and checking it. I've noticed myself since swapping over.
Yeah.
It's
When we were running off Anchor, I'd just be checking it in the paddock. I'd be checking that more than I would have my social media, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I checked it more than Snapchat.
100%. But Martin, just give us a bit of a rundown of who you are and where you come from and where you're back.
Yeah, no worries. I think last time we spoke, I was still practicing as an agronomist, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I was working as a commercial agronomist for a group called AMPS. I was based out at Armatree, which was a great career and a great job. I really liked it. But then we bought a farm that was about 5 hours away, and I was getting a bit over the travel time to go work on it on weekends. So since we last spoke, I've finished up with AMPS. I'm now farming up at Delungra, and I also work for a company called Growth Ag as a territory manager, and do a bit of contracting to another company called Innovate Ag, where work on R&D and mainly R&D, research work and coordination. It's a pretty interesting job, pretty cool product that I work with there. First one in the world to be registered with peptides as the active ingredient. But yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, we might get into that a little bit more, but you went to uni. We both met at uni. You went the Agro side. I'm more of a stocky, so I went the marketing side of it all and went that way. But you enjoyed your time throughout uni, for those that don't know you?
Yeah. So we both went to UNE, as you said there. Good time, good course, good uni. And I guess it's sort of taken me to where I am now.
Legend good steed to bloody Punters Run.
That's it. Punters Run partnership.
How'd you come up with Punters Run?
I thought it was funny. The banker didn't. So that's what we trade as, Punters Run partnership.
Yeah, so
betting on their own.
Paperwork as well. Punters Run. Who's this? Like wanting a loan coming in. Punters Run.
Yeah.
At least they know you're having a punt.
Well, yeah. And I don't know if you ever noticed it when you're at uni, but on that Bundara Road out of Armidale, you've got the Poverty Pastoral Company. So that was my inspiration.
Yeah, I was trying to think. There's a few weird names out there. We might have to do a social post on the weirdest sort of farming enterprise partnership, how it goes like that. But I think that poverty one, that's a bit rich.
He's a pretty good operator too.
Yeah, a bit of a juxtaposition there. But Murray, with your experience in coming on and everything, we ran like in the paddock episodes with yourself, and you've taken it off into little snippets each week. And I think they're doing world of wonders for the people that listen. And then there's also thousands out there that don't even know about it, but could benefit from it. What's your experience been running in the Paddock podcast on your own?
Yeah, so kicked that off not long after we spoke the first time, and yeah, it's been a pretty good podcast. I've got a lot of feedback. I still find it funny whenever when I say whenever, like occasionally, someone will come up to me who's recognised me and said, "Oh, I really love the show," and yeah, I normally fall over laughing that someone actually recognised me from it, but basically just each week I do a short little 5-10 minute piece, uh, pretty well just on something in agronomy, something on farm management or things to look at in the paddock. And then occasionally we'll have a guest on to talk about something in a bit more detail. So recent ones were Rob Eccles, who we both talked about high value, high production pasture systems. And he also covered off on hemp agronomy and how to grow and manage a hemp crop, given he's currently one of the authors of the new hemp pest management guide. So that's been some interesting work.
Yeah, there's a fair few elements that go into agronomy. What sort of areas do you reckon you're going to tackle? Pastures to broadacre to where's it going?
Look, I try and offer a broad church, but I tend to get stuck in knowing what I know.
Yeah.
And well, obviously, you don't want someone ranting and raving about something they don't really know either. So we do tend to stick to broadacre dryland agronomy. But when we do get into pastures or something a bit different, something a bit interesting, that's when we try and get a guest on that knows more about it than I do.
Yeah, 100%. And for the big news, the launch of what it was that we were going off the 1st of April, but as farming comes around, you've got to put farming first. And you're a new starter on the farm that you've just bought as well, so you've got to keep that pumping. But Farms Advice bringing on in the paddock to include and get some more expertise on with your little snippets, Muzz, and also the experts that you'll get. We can sort of narrow down on the agronomy. I think big space for mixed enterprise farmers to sort of improve their cropping side of it as well. Likewise for them to improve their livestock side. But I think for us, like I learned heaps of mates from uni like yourself about the cropping sort of systems and what to put in, rotational, just that sort of stuff to even what sort of rates we should be putting on out there. So it's exciting to sort of grow the farm media and that content from that side of it. What are you keen on the collaboration about, you reckon?
Yeah, look, I'm keen to be part of the network. Just come across to a more broader audience base.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, like I think it goes both ways, as you're saying, that mixed farming thing. We run a few cattle as well, so if I can get more out of that and turn that into a more effective system, other than a few cows that just sit out in the paddock and throw a bull in them with once a year, I like to learn as well, and yeah, that's one of the things I actually love about getting a guest on or listening to your own show is just the broad church of people in ag and the handy little facts that you can get from everywhere.
Yes, those little things like I went to a sheep event the other day, T90, and you didn't actually need to buy a piece of equipment, but you could take that info home and implement it into your own sort of system. And then that could improve or save yourself time, improve your profits over time as well, rather than having to go out there and buy all this ag tech and not really knowing what the outcome is. So it's good to have those free takeaways. No doubt they'll be getting some from ITPs, the short name, so in the paddock.
Yeah. And that's, that's the stuff that I find most handy. Like one of my more recent Wednesday Tech Talks was on silicon and its use in the cropping system. And that came from a GRDC update that I was at. And that has to be, one of the most exciting presentations I've seen in a while, because it didn't require any major system changes. It doesn't require new bits of machinery. Anyone can do it. And the results were just really exciting. The overheads to get into it was zero. You've just got to get the gear and have a bit of a play.
And you said yourself in that one that you're going to run it out on yours as well.
Correct. Yeah. So I've teed up with the manufacturer, and we're going to have a couple of trials out there, which I'll be posting about throughout the year, no doubt, on my Instagram and Facebook and even YouTube. I do a little bit of that too.
Yeah, bit of prestige worldwide happening on all accounts there, but that'd be good to see. I think someone at the event the other day as well, keep mentioning it, like how research not connected to action on farms, and we've got the two elements, but they're not really connecting and receiving that. So like to get that directly out to you as a trial, but also you got the podcast as well to run that information out. Pretty handy.
Yeah, that's it. And that's one of the things that, if we go back to almost where I started in it, well, where I did start in agronomy was at AMPS.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, like that business, it's a reseller business, but it exists to fund grower-driven research. And that was one of the things I really loved about it, was that everything, that they did had to come back to a profitability mark. Not only does it work in theory, does it work in practice, and does it make you money? And, that's where research needs to be at it for the grower level.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to touch on starting your own farm. It's essentially from scratch, isn't it? You've gone out and it's not
pretty much, yeah.
Not a hand-me-down or a succession sort of planned out. You've sort of got debt chasing you sort of thing, but you're excited to get into farming yourself. How's it all sort of work in your operation?
Yeah, so as you said, fair to say that we're very leveraged. It wasn't a handout, but there was assistance in the form of loans were guaranteed type thing. So it's still lucky in that regard. But look, to be honest, we had our finance lined up. We're in the market. We just happened to be in the right time, right place, and that was what led us to purchase this block. So it's a original World War II soldier settlement block. So it's 340 hectares, about 225 of that's arable.
Yep.
And the rest is grazing, predominantly. Well, it's pretty well just native grasses. So cropping is our main enterprise. We started out getting contractors in to run the entire show pretty well. They did the spraying, the planting, the harvesting. Since then, we found contractors have become a little bit less available, just as their businesses, like the people that we're using around our area, their business direction changed, so they ended up doing less around us. And so we've gone out and bought our own gear, which so we've got a 3-point linkage old hay sprayer and and what's called a Sustain Ag bio drill, but that's just the bar. We've got Boss units on it, so it's a pretty handy rig.
Yep.
So we're probably a bit overcapitalised, to be honest, for our scale. And in regards to the tractor, under horsepowered. So it's, that's posing its own challenges. But yeah, it's one of those things that you got to weigh up against the opportunity cost of not getting a crop in the ground. And it's an interesting position, really. You need more country to justify the gear, but that's where we're at the moment, and hopefully things change over time.
I think you do and you don't. Like, we just got auto steer the other day, and like I'm more than happy to jump in the spray rig and go spraying now. I just used to get so frustrated by the green spots I'd leave just from my lack of attention to that corner or that tree or something. But now we've got that. I think it's like a bit of an optimizing sort of thing. But yeah, obviously bit of HP would help you out there a little bit. What was your experiences with contracting 100%? Like, does that work out?
Yeah, so it works well when things are working well. So like, it's particularly if you've got, off-farm income, another job type thing, you don't have to be there in the machine.
Yep.
And so, we tried to make it as friendly as we could for the contractors. One of the first things we did when we bought the place was we replumbed all the water, so there was a single fill tank. You had 2 tanks. You could swap between bore water and rainwater, and just swapped it all to a 2-inch cam lock fitting on all the tanks, all the fill points. The theory being that if there was a storm coming or something, and the contractor had 4 farms to do but could only do 2, I wanted to be in the 2.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be a quick, easy, painless job for them. And so that worked well, particularly because that one operator, they had they had everything. They had the spray rigs, they had the sowing rigs, they had the harvester. And then it then became a bit more difficult. They sort of got out of the spraying game, but were replaced by another fella who's was good, and his machine suited the system. And then he sort of upgraded to a 36 metre machine on different wheel spacings and that. It didn't quite suit the system anymore, so we just sort of stuck with our own gear. It comes down to relationships really, and being organised, being prepared, and just managing everything well. Yep. You want to keep them in the loop with where you're up to, where you're hoping to be, what you're expecting to have, and all the stuff that you're expecting to have there, and make sure that you have everything there and ready on time for them, just to sort of keep things moving.
Absolutely. So starting your own sort of farm as a youngish, what came out of the forest that you didn't really expect, having known what you do, know everything sort of about farming and cropping to livestock? Is there something that jumped out of the woods to sort of shock you about farming, or you sort of hit the ground running?
Yeah, no, the marketing.
Yeah.
So production, that's fine. That's easy. I tend to say anyone can grow a crop. It's selling it that's the hard bit.
Yep.
It's and that's one of the things that probably didn't consider enough when we bought the place that we bought. And we sort of took things for granted about the other areas I'd been in. So look, I've always worked around Moree or Armatory or Liverpool Plains, where, if you don't have your own on-farm storage, it's no worries because you just run it into the nearest silo.
Yeah.
Where we are about an hour and a half drive east of Moree, which is your nearest bulk ambler. And so to send a crop to Moree, it's the easiest way to get grain off the farm. We don't have a lot of storage. We can only sort of store about 200 tonne, and that's, cobbling together mesh bins and round bins and all sorts of stuff. So to send a crop to Moree, it's the easiest way to offload a crop. But you've got to really look at your marketing, because in a way that's costing you about $50 a tonne. Yeah. So it's costing you $30 to get it there. And normally speaking, it'd be worth about $20 less in Moree than it is ex-farm, because we're closer to the ports.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's put a lot of emphasis on storage after that first year. And when I sat down and looked at that, I'm like, geez, that was a 4-tonne wheat crop. It's cost us $50. That's $200 a hectare. What else are you doing on farm that's going to cost you that much money? Yeah. It's just another way of looking at it. And I try and, bring all things back to dollars per hectare.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the way of the world at the moment, isn't it? You got to sort of nut down on your units per hectare, per head, per acre, whatever it may be. For yourself, what's your operation look like? What crops did you get in last year? Did you get a crop in?
Yeah, so last year we had mung beans that then went into fallow and then went into sorghum. Yep. So that's still to come off. We're hoping to get into that in the next week. And we had durum wheat in. So yielded very well. But yeah, the quality wasn't there.
Yeah, righto. Just because it got so wet late in the season.
Yeah, probably just a cool, wetter finish.
Yeah.
So it all went DR3. It wasn't downgraded to feed. It was still, still durum quality.
Yep.
And it probably didn't have enough nitrogen on it in hindsight going into just, going off the amount of stuff, like nitrogen that was left in the soil after the crop. Basically, yeah, I was fairly down on that crop. It wasn't sown under the most ideal conditions, and it just left me feeling pretty poorly about it for the rest of the year. And it wasn't until the header went into it that I actually picked up and started to feel a bit cheerier about it. The story there was we just had that really wet planting run.
Yep.
And so we didn't get it sown until mid-June, and then we didn't, because it was we had a disc planter lined up. This was before we had our own planter. We had a disc planter lined up, and that particular planter really didn't like wet conditions. It would just block up like all buggery.
Yep.
So we panicked. We borrowed the neighbours like 50-foot gyral, full incorporation machine, and we went and sowed with that. And it left seed everywhere from just under the surface to 10 centimetres down. And it took about a month for it all to come up. So it was just ugly. It was slow. It just, yeah. And we'd already thrown on 400 kilos of ammonium sulfate, which is about the equivalent of 200 kilos of urea.
Yeah.
So it had a stack of N under it, which I thought was going to be enough because I didn't have high hopes for it after that germination. And I'm like, look, I'm just going to do a broadleaf and a fungicide and whatever it is, it is. So we, and it still honestly looked like a thin crop. It didn't look like a heavy crop right up until the header went in. So I wasn't, I still wasn't particularly hopeful. I was hoping for 3.5, 4 ton, and was pleasantly surprised with what we got.
Being an agro, do you get a second agro opinion, or you just go all guns blazing?
Not really professionally. Occasionally I get a mate in that's also an agro, just to, we drive around with a beer and have a look. Sometimes I think I should. I think it's a bit like a lawyer representing themselves at times.
Yeah. Well, that's why I got you on the podcast now. I've got another agro in my pocket.
That's it.
No, very good. It sounds like Punter's Run's going for a good punt there and coming outside the other end. So how long have you had this place for? And
March 2020 or May 2020, somewhere there.
Yeah, so you're still going pretty high, but you're still keen on farming and being a young family.
Yeah, no, I love the smell of diesel. I love being in the cab. You just, or behind a mob of cattle. There's just nothing else like it. So I think if this ever not works out, I think I'll just get a job as a tractor driver somewhere.
Because plenty of them going around at the moment.
Yeah, better pay too.
Just good pay, yeah. There was one year who was paying $50 just to get people in the door last year, I think.
Yeah, no, there's some big wages being thrown around.
100%. But like on these episodes, we'll venture to get you on Farms Advice once a month as well, just to get your thoughts on what's happening in the markets for agro. I've got a few notes here. So agro today, what's happening currently for you, and where do you think we're at with preparing for the crop? Like around us, we're a bit dry, so everyone's sort of holding off for that, I don't know, probably early May rain.
Yeah, so I'm a fair bit more north than you. I'm closer to Inverell. My farm itself is part way between Inverell and Moree, but we've obviously had a lot more rain up here than you guys have. So most people up here have got their oats in or their winter forage in by now.
Yep.
And they're getting ready to probably start sowing some faba beans in the next couple of weeks, or maybe a bit of Sun Max, some really long season wheat. A few guys I know that do dual purpose cropping, they've got them in the ground. So that's where most people are. Anyone that's, running that longer season stuff has either started or just about to. Everyone else is probably still up their fallow sprays, and that's my job tomorrow.
Yep.
It's up their fallow sprays and just going over their gear, getting their machines ready, making sure they've got their starter organised, their seed treated, their germ tests back, just everything ready so they know. So they know what they can do and they're set to get rolling as soon as they get an opportunity. And again, you're in more of just a straight winter cropping area, whereas we do summer crops as well. We like to suffer all year round.
Well, we do summer crops. We had millet in the other year.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, there's plenty. Like if you're in the sort of heavier country, I suppose they get 2 crops out there. There's a farm near Geary. They produce 20% of Australia's canned corn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think I know that farm. Yeah.
I imagine so.
They've got irrigation though.
Yeah, and there's some dry land among there as well. But yeah, probably more so on the fodder crops anyway. So
yeah. So anyway, there's still a bit of sorghum and stuff coming off up here. Bit of cotton still to be defoliated, but yeah, it's that season's pretty well wrapping up, and yeah, the ball keeps turning.
Have you dabbled in cotton agronomy, or is it?
I've done a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot. I've done, done a small amount. A little bit of dry land, a little bit of irrigated, but yeah, not a heap.
And to wrap that up, going into another hot topic of carbon thoughts. What are you thinking about carbon? Where we are? I'd imagine you're pretty vocal on this one.
I'm concerned about taking out a 25-year contract.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a bit skeptical on increasing soil carbon long term without, massively changing your farming system. Like, say, if I changed all my cropping country and ran it back to pasture, I'm very confident that that'll build up soil carbon. But building soil carbon over time in cropping country, I'm fairly skeptical on. Now there's some new tools coming out there into the market. Loam Bio releasing a series of biological products, which I'm following with interest. That may help that or should help that. But yeah, it's just, the trouble is it all comes down to growing biomass. To build carbon, you need to grow biomass. And, that for the most part in a dryland farming system relies on rainfall. And yeah, I'm just not confident about doing that. Like, I couldn't think of a dryland farmer that would take out a grain contract for further than the year that they're growing. I know of people selling cotton 3 years out, with very reliable water access.
Yeah.
But I've never heard of anyone selling a grain crop, further out than the year they're in. And it just makes me very nervous to sell a carbon contract for 25 years. Now I've got to, we should probably be baselining and working out where we're at, because we are, it wouldn't surprise me if we end up being in a position where we have to account for our carbon or are taxed on our carbon. I don't want that to happen. But we've seen that happen in Canada, New Zealand, the Netherlands. There's things like that are in the works. So I'm skeptical and cautious that it may come our way. But yeah, I'm not in a rush to enter into a 25-year carbon contract.
Now, I think there's there's a lot to be. It's very early days, isn't it, for what's happening? I think baselining is a pretty exciting thing to be doing, just as a farmer, to sort of know, without sort of blowing out those sort of costs. But the mate's farm, Macca's, they did 1,400 drills the other day or something. It's a bit of a cost to take on board with that, and then also the time to measure it and everything. But I think maybe a couple of these people trialing it and everything, maybe, especially within your area and different sort of farming systems, could be.
That's it. And yeah, to an extent, I think it's easier to do in a grazing system.
Yeah.
But again, in 25 years, when it is what it is. I'd be nervous if there was 5 years of 2019, or it could easily go the opposite way and be 5 years of 2021, just really wet year. But I just don't know, and that far out, it makes me really nervous as a grower to be taking out a contract over that amount of time.
Especially when farmers don't know what they're having for dinner tonight.
That's it.
But with that, I've seen that you've got a few elements on your farm of ag tech, a few implements there that are improving, or maybe aren't, improving the way you work in your daily routine. What have you got on farm, and why'd you get it? What convinced you?
Yeah, so we've got a few things. We've got the auto steer, which I think I'd paid for before I'd actually paid for the tractor. Just to give you the level of importance that I place on that. As any young farmer knows, we don't know how a steering wheel works. We've got to have a computer do it for us. But that's just, that's a no-brainer these days. Just that extra efficiency you get, plus knowing that you haven't missed anything, you're not getting any weed blowouts. And it's a lot easier just to drive without, having the having to worry about knowing where you're going. You can watch your boom, you can watch out for other things. It's just a far simpler system. So that would be, it's the main one I use all the time. The other piece we've got is the TWR5 Gallagher EID reader and weigher, plus trait recorder. And look, the way that came about was we originally were borrowing a TSI off the in-laws, and we were just chasing a weigh box and a weight function. And then when we worked out, all the extra benefits that we could get with recording those extra traits and just having, being able to make real-time decisions there at the crush, that's just something that really got me excited and got me interested, because we were able to make those decisions on the fly. Go, you know what, these cattle are only putting on 0.7 of a kilo a day. There's no point keeping them. Let's just get rid of them and cut our losses. Able to make decisions like that on the fly instead of, going through the notepad and paper, adding up all the weights, coming up with an average and going, bugger, we should have got rid of them while they're in the yards. And just being able to track those gains per animal, because as soon as they go in the crush, we've got the EID reader there that just links that weight to the animal. They're worth a bit of money. But look, if you had at least 100 head, I'd be getting one. That's just easy. And now we can integrate that into AgriWeb, which now we've got the TWR5, the TSI that we've been borrowing, we couldn't. We had to go through and upload them all in manually. So that'll be interesting to see how that works. Does
it add in the ID, like the EID?
Yep.
Its weight as an individual animal into AgriWeb?
It should, yeah.
Right.
That's my understanding. I haven't done it yet, because the antenna that I've got for my unit was originally meant to have a TSI panel reader attachment.
Yep.
And basically, because that's far side of the crush, I need to get an extension cord to run that antenna to the TWR, which is obviously on your near side.
Yep.
whereas the previous one just had a box there that you put on it and then it would Bluetooth to your TSI. So I've just got to get that cord, and then then we should be able to check how that works. But that's my understanding at the moment. We can track each animal individually on AgriWeb, but I was downloading them off the TSI onto a spreadsheet and then uploading that spreadsheet. Still a pretty easy process, but we should be able to do it real time now, which will be interesting.
Marvelous. And what else do you have on there? I know you got a couple more, or at least one more.
I'm not sure which one you're thinking of. What's that?
Water.
Oh, FarmBot. Yeah. I love my little FarmBot.
Yeah. Nice little shots reporting on Twitter there.
Yeah. It's a great tool for waking you up at 5 a.m. and telling you your tanks are running empty. Had that happen a few times, which is good because, you need to know and then not know. Actually, another time I'd left a tap on. I was before we had the float valve hooked up to the bore water tank. I used to manually fill it.
Yep.
I'd left it on. I was just on the way out the gate and got a message from FarmBot saying, "Hey, your tanks are dropping," and which was great. Reminded me to go back and turn it off. It's real time. Well, every 2 hours it updates the rainfall, updates your tanks every 2 or 3 hours. It's just a great little handy tool. And at one stage there, we had some domestic pigs that worked out that they could dig up their water pipes and make a mud bath every other day. So it was just great for keeping an eye on that until we could get rid of the buggers.
Yeah, nice. So are you still running the pigs?
No, they're gone.
Yeah.
They're gone. I'll be on the barbecue shortly.
Yeah, righto. And for ag tech, where do you see ag tech going? Like within livestock, you can sort of get all the sort of things, and maybe that might be maxing it out until you play with the data, also with genetics and stuff. Where do you see ag tech going? Or like what's an area on your farm you'd love some ag tech?
Oh, look, I think we're probably going to, in cropping at least, we're probably going to start moving to more autonomous systems like swarm farm and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know where that'll go, how that'll, whether they're limited to things like spraying or whether you start getting bigger autonomous machines that can pull an air seeder.
I think they were planning edition.
Yeah, I know with Swarm Farm you can get that one of the founders I think managed to crop right up until harvest completely with a swarm bot. He sprayed, he sowed, he did all of that.
Yeah.
How you harvest it, you're still going to need people in the system somewhere. There was a project in the UK, I saw it at a GRDC update a while ago, called the Hands-Free Hectare, where they had this 1 hectare paddock and everything was done remotely. They sowed it, sprayed it, harvested it, and crop checked it remotely, which was interesting. So it was a fun one, but I think in broadacre that's probably more where we're going. In your livestock, I think there's massive opportunities there for data collection. Things like satellite imagery, I don't know how well they work there, just because every farm is different, every paddock's different, the grass composition is different. It's probably not as straightforward and easy to manage as, say, looking at a crop through satellite imagery, which again, that's got its limitation. A 5-ton crop of Spartacus barley probably looks like a 1-ton crop of Planet. Yeah. So there's limitations there, but they're tools that we use. We do use satellite imagery as well for crop checking. See what areas are performing well, what areas are performing poorly. But you got things like your OptiWay, your data management systems. I think when you come back to your individual animal management in your livestock systems, I think that's probably where that's going to go, and just really drive that performance, chase those growth weights, chase those pregnancy rates, and particularly if we can start running more efficient cattle, turning cattle off quicker, that are growing quicker and performing better, that's kicking all these carbon goals as well, because that's less time they're running around the paddock burping.
Yeah, definitely. Are you trading, or you've got cows on board as well?
Yeah, so we've got breeders. We've got about 30 breeders.
Yeah.
And then we sort of dip in and out of trading. A couple of years ago, we would have about 200 head on farm at any one time, just trading heifers.
Yeah.
Which, that was pretty well helped by a rising market.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's been a fun operation. Breeders are a bit more stress-free.
Yeah, definitely. And having to move them on, you don't necessarily need to as well. But for yourself, Maz, what are you most excited about being in ag, and what are you passionate about in the next couple of years for yourself, but also maybe industry?
Oh, look, I love the industry. I love to see, what innovations are coming in the world, in the areas of cropping, not just, sorting out the basics of, NPK, that sort of stuff, just trying to work out where we can chase extra gains, where we can build a more resilient system. So again, whether it's through stuff like silicon, like I mentioned before, your green on green sprayers, that sort of technology is starting to roll out. I'll be keen to see how that goes. There's a whole heap. It's just a great industry to be in. There's, everyone's got to eat. It's not going away. It's just got a big, bold future in front of us.
And more people as well. Like we've they're talking of like 500,000 or 1 million more people coming in every year to Australia now.
Yeah, it'd be about right. Yeah.
Like for regional Australia, I think there can't be anything better. I think everyone complains about too many people, but then again, it's going to improve agriculture and access. Probably more so for those closer to town with their blocks breaking up as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's only going to benefit our communities as well, so it's a good thing. What's to come with ITP in the paddock with Martin Murray? What can we expect? Are you chasing like seasonality? Is that the way you want to do it, or what sort of trending, or what just gets you buzzing, or the opposite?
To be honest, it's a pretty good reflection of whatever I've got going on at the time. It's it isn't really planned out as well as it should be. It's just, it really comes down to whatever I've been thinking about or am thinking of. There's a couple of guests that would like to get on.
We'll track them down.
But yeah, it's just been difficult trying to get a couple of people to line up that are fairly busy individuals.
Yeah. No, it's the way of the world for ag. Like I have people who agree to come on, but then they cut out, then we reschedule, and then I have to cut out just because something comes up. But I think being in ag, we're so flexible, and we know the pressures of what others may be going through or whatever, seasonalities, getting a crop in, marking the lambs, or doing something before it rains. It's all sort of up in the air, and it's got to change at one point.
Yeah.
But for yourself, Maz, it's been a pretty good conversation. What would be one piece of advice, farms advice, you'd like to pass on for people out in the paddock?
Get advice. Like, honestly, if there's something you're not sure about, or if it's just something that it's always been the way you've done it, or something you're curious about, seek out advice and get it. There's plenty of people in the industry with knowledge to share. Even just throw out a random question on Twitter, you'll get 10 different opinions from 5 different people. Yeah. We're not short of advice. And if you're trying to build a better farm and a better system, just, reach out and find someone that knows. And, 9 out of 10 times or 10 out of 10 times, I'll be happy to help.
Yeah, definitely. It's probably the best shortcut and the easiest, most reliable shortcut as well, leaning on your professionals. And there seems to be a lot more coming into the industry now there's a bit more money floating around. People are keen and interested, especially the younger ones coming in, and the older ones maybe even coming back because the prices have turned around for them. But for yourself, where can we follow along in the paddock with Martin Murray?
So just search In the Paddock Podcast wherever you get your podcast, whether that's Spotify or Apple or a few of the others. Then just search In the Paddock Podcast on Instagram. You'll find me there. YouTube, you'll find me there. Get to see some of the wild old gear that I get to play with or have to put up with.
Yep.
I'm about a month younger than you, and my air seeder was the first bit of gear I bought that's younger than me. So it's fun.
Only down from here. If you look him up on Google, third website there, In the Paddock Podcast. The ones above it, shared racehorse ownership and party in the paddock.
Party in the Paddock sounds fun.
Yeah, you lost out there. You should have named yours that one. But no, that's a good one, Muzz. Thanks for coming on board. I'm pretty keen to have you on board for more episodes and keen to see what we can plan out to pass on some farms advice in the paddock. Should be good.
Sounds good. Keen to be part of it.
This Farms Advice episode does not stop here. Come and join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, and even join our Facebook group. Go to farmsadvice.com.au for more on this episode and spread the hashtag FarmsAdvice to your mates. If you can leave a review on Apple or Spotify, that will let other farmers find us too. But until then, see you next Tuesday. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Farms Advice podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people today. Also, because you're stuck around, make sure to check out our Facebook group where we dive in a little bit deeper into the conversation, but also a place where you can ask your questions.